everyone, welcome to another one of these wonderful streams we do. I finally stopped doing the traveling that I was doing. I'm so sorry. I had to meet family. I'm so sorry, guys. I couldn't stream for you. Please stop being mean to me. This is 10 Principles for Good Level Design. I must have watched this at some point, but there's not a lot of examples that are jumping out at me. It's by Thomas. It's by Dan Taylor from Square Enix Montreal. It's 2013 GDC. It's a 10-year-old stream. Why, I would hazard to guess there's many viewers today that weren't even born in 2013. As we all know, these streams are kindergarten friendly. Hey Coco, Reno, hey Pedro, hey them, hey Adek. So yeah, last stream, my understanding is that audio was way too low. Chat, that is your responsibility, not mine. That is your responsibility. Tell me if it's too low. And don't let me increment it just a little bit and then you still can't hear anything. Tell me if it's too low. I want it to be good, but you have to tell me. Hey, good guy. So the captions are on. Playback speed. Let's put this into like 1.5 because this is an English one, so everybody should be able to understand him. And yeah, let's see if this is good. I'm still waiting for that video about burning blood in From games, but this is great content still. Oh yeah, the burning blood in From games. Sophie once talked to me about something like this when it came to Elden Ring, I think. I have to re-explore what that was, because that's definitely something we'll be talking about, probably in the Elden Ring commentary. Hey Ed. Alright then, let's go. Alright. So can you hear both of us talking here? I need to know. Me and Loki on Bloodborne. Me and Loki need to do more stuff on Bloodborne. You know, Loki and Smotown have been teaming up a lot, and I feel like I need to get involved. You know, I feel like I need to kill that relationship before it can blossom. Can't wait for the German dude's questions. There's always one. You only hear me? Nonsense. Wait. What? What is this supposed to mean, chat? Zero video audio. All right. How about now? Okay, it's loading.
Anyone whose mobile phone goes off. So if you can please turn your phones off. Also, you'll probably be receiving an email requesting... All
right. Did you hear that? Okay, now you heard it. All right. So I'm gonna let you all in on a little secret. Little bit, like show you how the sausage is made. So this is OBS, the audio setup. And see, I had set it to my headset. Headphones WH-CH510 stereo. But I was meant to put it onto this one, the hands-free AG audio version of the same headset. Because obviously you can only play one of them. Ridiculous. Is the audio volume good?
Feedback on this presentation. Please feel free to...
You guys didn't miss anything important. He's just doing the same like generic GDC opening.
So with that out of the way, I shall begin my presentation. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Dan Taylor. I've been in the video game industry in...
I'm going to assume that the audio quality is good.
Years now. And I've had the awesome privilege to work at great studios like Sony Computer Entertainment Europe, Electronic Arts in Vancouver, Rockstar.
Could be like 10 to 20% louder, methinks. Not too quiet. When you speak, his voice is impossible to hear, but else it is working. Does his voice get lower when I speak? I think that may be a setting that I can configure. Isn't it fun that we do this together rather than... because like a lot of guys come in there and they're like, hey, yeah, you know... they're like... have this stuff figured out before. Vision output, snap sensitivity, projectors, preview, importers, studio mode, It's just that I'm louder. Okay. Me being louder, we can fix that. Okay, it's currently at 15. Let's put it to minus 12. Let's put it to minus 10. Whoever's watching the VOD is like furiously fast forwarding right now. Okay, so he's 30% louder now.
And Ubisoft.
All right.
And I'm currently.
This is both of us talking at the same time.
For Square Enix at their studio in Montreal.
What?
Which is a place that's famous for lumberjacks, poutine, and this lady Celine Dion, who I think is the mayor.
That's pretty good.
Right. It's also where the new Hitman is being made, and I've been tasked with running the level design on that, which is super exciting.
He's talking about Hitman Absolution. I think Hitman Absolution actually had pretty decent level. Like it's a shitty Hitman game. But it's very clear that some corporate mandate was pushed down into the studio to make Hitman more like a Max Payne or an Uncharted kind of cinematic action shooter. And I think that there are levels in that game where the game still manages to be sort of Hitman-y. And I do think there's a lot of good stuff about Hitman Absolution. But if he's talking about Hitman Absolution, maybe this is... I don't think this is the... No, I think the iOS series games came out in 2016 first. But if this is Hitman Absolution, there's a lot of good stuff in that, even though I don't think the game is great.
And when I found out I was working on such a revered franchise, I was reminded of the graphic novelist Paul Pope and what he said when he was given carte blanche to do whatever he wanted with Batman. He said that working on such a cool franchise was like being handed the keys to an extremely hot car. Now, you can either drive it very carefully, make sure you don't scratch the paint, or you can take it out onto the highway and open it up and see what it can do.
Yeah, this is the box art for Absolution.
Take it out onto the highway. It'd be good if I had some kind of map, so I didn't get lost and I knew where I was going.
See, the Hitman games are amazing because I think especially Blood Money, me and my uncle, when we were like young, like teens, pre-teens, or wherever that age group we were in at the time, Hitman Blood Money was one of those games where you really just fall in love with game design when you're playing it because you just realize that, I can do anything. And everything I do, there's some rational reaction to it. I can go in there guns a-blazing, or I could just drop the chandelier on the opera stage and it'll work. And that sort of that's a great. The Hitman series is great for that. I think there's a lot of Hitman DNA in.
I found myself looking to classic design principles for inspiration, as I often do in situations
that
like this.
era of new game designers, even though they may or may not be aware of it.
Chief design officer at Brown in Germany.
Because it's one of those games that's very easy to. It's very sort of
on people like Jonathan Ive,
mass appeal friendly, but it's also
in the 1970s,
one of those games that sort of excites you about game design.
Good design. So good design is honest. Good design is aesthetic. Good design is as little design as possible.
You think Kingsfield? You think the Ancient City had the best level design? I think Demon Souls has better level. I think Demon Souls had better level design, but relative to the limitations they were working with and to the presentation format, the Ancient City probably has better level design. I'm broke. And
so forth.
Somebody, this is what happens when you people bring up Kingsfield, the Ancient City.
It's not really applicable to game design and level design, but I thought it might be possible to do a similar set of guidelines for level design.
Is Hitman the guy who makes all the hit music?
Before I get going, I'm going to make a quick apology. There's going to be a lot of interdisciplinary crossover in these principles, so it's more than just level design. It's mission design, it's narrative design, it's mechanic design. And I think this is important because a good level designer should really be well versed in all of these fields, so they can take
I can't believe how good Blood Money is to this day, and I didn't play it as a kid either, played it late. Yeah, Blood Money, like, it holds up. Maybe, like, probably the input is not as snappy or as IK friendly as what people would expect from a Hitman game today, but it totally holds up.
Holistic approach to the design of their levels.
Also, it's crazy weather outside, so
also,
we might get some lags.
Despite Charlton Heston dressed as Moses in these slides, these are not rules that are written in stone. They're just guiding principles. They're my undereducated opinion. They've been created to prompt discussion to shed a little bit of light on the black art of level design.
You know, chat is good when the
Hopefully,
majority are
great to
probably
pick out levels
Kingsfield
along the way.
enjoyers. I
And
specifically
I've got that.
pruned
And
my
away, let's start
audience.
with the first
I
principle,
spent like half a year
which is
making
good
exclusively
level
Kingsfield
design
videos,
is fun
and
to
everybody
navigate.
who was not on
Now,
board
capture
with
reverse scale
Kingsfield
level
left
presents the
me.
player with many different gameplay vectors. There's observational, which is the act of surveying one's surroundings. Strategic.
So we've gotten to rule number 1. Good level design is fun to
The act
navigate.
of processing your observations into a plan. And then there's navigational, the act of actually
I feel like I always bring this up whenever we watch one of these streams, but I think the word fun is I think it's a bad word, because most of the time when they say fun, what they mean is engaging, right? Good level design is engaging to navigate, because Silent Hill does not have fun level design, it has engaging level design, right? It's good level design relative to the kind of game that is. And Eco does not have fun level design, but it's intuitive and engaging. So let's just, fun means engaging in these GDC talks, I guess.
And for a smooth and enjoyable experience, the player should always know exactly where to go. Which is
Oh, you watched all the Kingsfield videos for the accent?
It clearly guides the player through the critical path. Now, different games use different methods to do this, but it usually comes down to the use of light, geometry, color, and animation. A good example of which is Mirror's Edge. So Mirror's Edge uses all of these things to create fantastic clarity and flow. If you look at this slide, it's pretty easy to work out. You have to climb up the red crane, run along the red crane, jump onto the red pipes, run along the red pipes, and then jump onto the conveniently placed soft, squishy object just on the right. But the important thing to note here is the difference between intuitive to navigate and fun to navigate. What the player doesn't notice in the screenshot is equally important. So the hidden messenger bags.
Oh, wait, actually, in that capacity, certainly there are, like, Blighttown, for example. I think Blighttown is really fun to navigate. Once you have it in 60 frames per second, and when you're not in the swamp, like climbing up on those scaffoldings, I think that is really fun. I think it's there's a lot of weird locations that are inherently fun to be in, and you want to get there. But I think that's still like that's fun, but that's a different kind of fun from like a Spyro or a Crash Bandicoot.
The speed paths will give you.
Why did the city paint those things in red? To
To
tell you where to navigate.
Freestyle navigation, and this helps create depth and replayability in your levels. Also, in contrast to this point, sometimes it's good to throw in a little confusion.
As a comparison to Blighttown, you have a similar level with bad design in Dark Souls 2. That's true. That's true. I don't like the gutter. I don't like any of that stuff. I think Dark Souls 2. We'll talk about Dark Souls 2 when the time comes. And maybe we'll do a Dark Souls 2 complete through stream one of these days.
Modern Warfare 2 does this particularly well in its favela level. It's highly memorable for its hectic and intense gameplay. It's set in a Brazilian favela. It's a tight, twisty maze. There's no clearly obvious path through it. Enemies are coming from all sides. They're coming from behind. They bring verticality into the level design with enemies attacking you from above. Is it easy to navigate through this level? Absolutely not. Is it fun? Yes, it is.
Yeah.
And by carefully throwing in some well-considered confusion to the mix, Treyarch have created a really good sense of dramatic tension in this level. And speaking of drama,
I think it was Todd Howard talked about how once you've asked the player to make 7 choices in a level, the level just turns into spaghetti soup. It may not have been 7. I think it was like 5 or 7 or something like that. But basically, every turn the player has to make is an extra decision branch they need to make. And by the time they're at like number 7 or 8, it's really hard for them to compartmentalize the entire level. And they just sort of get lost unless they're trailing a specific wall. I thought that was really interesting.
Second principle is that good level design does not rely on words to tell the story.
You live in Brazil. Favelas are really bad to navigate, so that place was done really well to real locations. You didn't care for Kingsfield, but I absolutely loved your Metal Gear Solid and Silent Hill 2 videos. Thank you, King Brogan.
Told me that a good story or a good piece of communication.
He sounds
is
funny
like
at
a
super
broken
speed.
circle.
You know, the worst thing about playing them at fast forward sound is that if somebody's watching the VOD of this video at work and they like to listen to these videos a bit fast forwarded, this guy might come across as incomprehensible at that point. But that's the way it's got to be. I can't talk much faster, guys.
And you give the player this circle, and it's down to them to fill in the gap. Now, the trick here is if you make the gap too big, the player won't be able to fill it in. and he'll feel confused and patronized. But if you make the gap too small, he'll fill it in too easily, and he'll be bored and he won't feel challenged. So how do we do this in terms of level design? Well, there are three types of narrative that work in a game's level. There's explicit, implicit, and
Oh my god. Talk about three of the unfunniest men of all time. You know, I watched a horror movie. This is no, we're going way back. Like this is we're opening up the vault here. There's a horror movie starring Robert De Niro where I think his daughter comes back into his life and she's like 10 years old or something. And she begins to befriend like a shadow figure. And Robert De Niro starts to see the shadow figure on a bunch of photographs where he himself has been sort of crossed out and the shadow figure appears there instead. And I'm going to spoil this movie. It's not a good movie. So everybody who wants spoiler alert, put me on mute for like 30 seconds. Turns out the shadow figure was him. It's another personality within him. And this movie really got to me, not because it's like a good movie, but there was just something I felt really scary about, and I was a kid back then. I was really scared of that sort of imagery of that shadow man invading their life, and that I was kept up way, way past my bedtime. So, you know, I eventually, I went into my dad's room and I woke him up, and I was like, I can't sleep, but I didn't want to admit that I was scared. So I blamed it on the uncomfortable bed. And he brought me into the living room and was like, well, you can sleep on the couch. It's much more comfortable than this crappy bed, I guess. And he put the Three Amigos on so I could fall asleep to that because he knew like I was scared and he was trying to put on something funny to distract me. And I was bored out of my mind. And then the problem was I couldn't sleep because I was so angry at having to watch the Three Amigos. I hate all of these guys.
Explicit narrative is anything that's explicitly called out to the player through cutscenes, or text, or spoken dialogue, or any written.
Which movie? I don't remember what movie it was called. It's something like it's some Robert De Niro movie. I know he was in it, and it's some crappy horror movie with that basic premise.
And it's this that creates your circle. Implicit is anything that the player figures out for themselves by looking at the environment. I'll go into this in a bit more detail.
Aesir is a naked gun hater confirmed. I don't think I like those movies either. The thing is, I like Leslie Nielsen. I think Leslie Nielsen can be funny, but he was also just stuffed into a tremendous amount of trashy, unfunny movies. I think he always delivered, though. I wouldn't take that away from him.
The first type of narrative is pretty straightforward, but it's the other two types, implicit and emergent, that create that crucial gap in the circle. So how do we do this at a level?
Take.
Well, the best way of creating implicit narrative is a technique called mise en scene, which has been used by stage and cinema for many, many years, and it's the art of telling the story through the environment. And I believe that some studios call this environmental narrative. So for me...
Oh, you can really feel the 2013 in this guy. Environmental narrative, more like environmental storytelling, idiot. Mise en scene, I'd never heard of this phrase before. But of course he would put BioShock in the backdrop, because BioShock is the game that sort of normalized, or not normalized, it sort of normified the term environmental storytelling and ludonarrative dissonance. BioShock, people don't talk about this. BioShock is like the most valuable game of all time, in the sense of getting the general consumer to think critically about video games. There, yeah, you had your Ecos and your Shadow of the Colossuses before, but like nobody was talking, like the average person didn't talk about environmental storytelling before BioShock, and they didn't talk about ludonarrative dissonance before BioShock. And there's so much stuff that BioShock explicitly brought to the sort of mainstream critical evaluation of games. And even if you don't think it's like a great game, I think that that's a really beautiful legacy for this game. And I also think it's a really good game in general, so,
The master of implicit narrative is BioShock. So if you look at these pictures here, you'll see there's water on the floor, which is kind of bad if you're in an underwater city. There are balloons on the ceiling, which means there was a party recently. There are creeping masks, which make you think, what kind of party was this? And there are drinks that have been left abandoned, so clearly something went wrong, and people left in a hurry. What I find particularly interesting about this picture is the massive big sign on the side, which clearly says that it's New Year 1959, which tells you the exact date that everything went wrong. But also, even though it's almost the 60s, the decor of this environment is very much in the 40s, which creates an odd visual disparity and makes the player feel uneasy. Now, it's very important that you should design your levels to give your world artists the opportunity to tell this visual story. But
BioShock always seemed pretentious. I think BioShock Infinite has a lot of sort of pretentious strings in it. I think the original BioShock is just a really well-told story. But But, to each their own. The game that gave me dissonance was the new Tomb Raider game. You have class now. Goodbye, Pedro. I will say, Pedro, if you're still listening, I think Bioshock, what I'm talking about is, Tomb Raider and Uncharted gives you ludonarrative dissonance because you're a good guy plowing through 700 people on your mission to steal, like, a mummy idol or whatever. Bioshock did it, like, it actually had something to say about that. KOTOR did it better. KOTOR 2 did it better.
Creating a emergent narrative is not such an obvious task because the level designer doesn't actually create it. He merely enables it by providing the player with choice. So Hitman is actually a great example of emergent narrative, as there's plenty of choice. So,
but it didn't have the impact of
any
Bioshock.
Kind of mechanic you like to kill your mark. You can poison him with a syringe, or you can poison their food. You can use combat mechanics, either...
you are late, hey you. And now you're going to be completely lost.
You can use the physics to kill him by pushing him off a ledge, or by pushing something heavy onto him.
I don't think OG Bioshock is pretentious, maybe if you haven't played it. I've heard the story really drags down after you bash that one guy's head in. Okay, so the thing is, people who say that, I think they need to replay the game. Because I think the best part of Bioshock is the story afterwards. When you're going down like Apollo Square and you get to see the living conditions of the poor people. And then you get to see the living conditions of the rich people. And like it's a really sort of basic, like, the rich guys, they take all the stuff, and the little guy has to, have to scrounge around in the trash cans. But I think there's a lot of good environmental storytelling there, and I think there's like a really good atmosphere when you walk through those desolate buildings, and it's just like stacks and stacks of multi-level beds strewn all over the place. I think that's probably the best level design in that entire game, it's not like the game just nosedives or that it has some, it undermines its own story or anything after you bash that one guy's head in. And like the story, that's not a resolution. Like you need to actually resolve the narrative from that point. And I think Bioshock absolutely lands on that front. And people complain like, oh, it just ends in a weird boss battle. And it's like, yeah, it is a weird boss battle. I don't think it's like a perfect fit, but I think the only reason people complain about the way that game ends is because it did build up so well, and that moment was so powerful. But there's nothing you can add behind that's going to have the same impact, and you still need to resolve the story. So,
yeah, it's freedom of choice, an emergent style. It's great for allowing the player to fill in the gap in your circle. In fact, in Hitman, you can even go in dressed as a chicken, guns blazing, and kill absolutely everyone in the entire level, or you can sneak through the level undetected, dressed in your immaculate black suit, kill only the mark, and leave through the front door before anyone knows you're there, getting that perfect silent assassin rating, which is great. But too much choice can leave the player confused.
I actually have a finished script for Bioshock 2, a video on that,
design,
which I'll be making
tells the player what to do,
soon-ish,
but never how to do it.
Hopefully.
The player needs to be in no doubt as to what he or she has to do when they go through your level. And you should provide them with clear objectives, so waypoints, other navigational aids, etc. But it is possible to create compelling challenge through obfuscation of the details. That is to say, by providing nebulous objectives. So keep your guidance concise and clear. Only give as much information to the players as is absolutely necessary, but make sure you provide multiple paths and styles of approach. So Skyrim does this very well because of its open world nature, particularly the Dark Brotherhood missions, which are kind of like a Tolkien-esque Hitman. They tell you exactly where you can find your mark and exactly who they are. They can appear as a mark on your compass. But it never forces the player to use a singular technique to carry out the execution. In fact, if you look at the level design for the Dark Brotherhood missions, very often specific alternate methods of execution have been set up. So there'll be an arrow, a bow rather, and a sheath of arrows on top of a ledge so you can strike from a distance, or there'll be an opportunity to kill the target silently.
I would contend that Bioshock 1 is better than Bioshock 2, but yeah, I'd agree that the first two Bioshocks are vastly superior to Infinite.
You shouldn't chastise them. You should design it into your game and encourage.
What's my opinion on Infinite? I really want to like Infinite. Infinite, I followed the entire marketing for that game. I watched Adam Sessler's sit-downs with Ken Levine that were like 30 minutes, hour-long videos. I watched Ken Levine talk about this amazing game they were designing, and I kind of lied myself into really liking Bioshock Infinite. But I just can't. I even replayed it recently. I went through the first two games. I went through Minerva's Den, and then I tried to go through Infinite while I was writing the script for Bioshock 2. And after like 2 hours in, I just couldn't anymore. It's too like I'm too railroaded into standing around and not playing a game while these characters are yammering back and forth, and the story is such nonsense, and it's just I think it lacks. Like I respect the sort of idea it's trying to go with. Like it's trying to explore this idea of constants and variables and all that, and like it's another sort of BioShock game as a statement on video game storytelling that I like that. But I don't think it really comes together all that well, and it is painfully obvious that this is not the story they set out to make. You just look at the promotional material they put out a year before release and the game we got. This is not the same game. It is very obvious, and I think this has even been confirmed, that there was a producer shuffle. Like I think what happened from memory was that in the last 8 months of development or something like that, 2K put a new producer on top of the game. And I think what this new producer did was just tell Ken Levine, this game launches in 8 months. Either it launches, like either you can be in charge of giving me a product to sell in 8 months, or I will find somebody else to do it. And basically they had to take all of the pieces they had and they had to cobble together some sort of story from it. I think that is what happened. And it's a very compromised product, I feel. And I don't really blame anybody. I mean, Ken Levine has 300 people working on this game, and he's just bleeding money trying to do these weird experimental shifting narratives and shifting environments. Like it's a PlayStation 3 game, so like it's not even obvious that this is going to be feasible. But also it's, I think it's really brave that they put this much money into it. And yeah, it didn't turn out great, but they gave it a shot. And it's not like the game has nothing good in it. I think there's a lot of good stuff in the game. It's kind of like Silent Hill 4. Even though it may not be great, there's a lot of good stuff in it. I think Silent Hill 4 is better than BioShock Infinite, though. But yeah, I definitely feel like that game, it's just sort of I love the game that could have been. But whenever I try to play it, I can't. It doesn't feel that good.
So, veteran game designer Mark Cerny tells us that the player should be...
Compromise is a good term for Infinite?
Yeah. ...be completed in any order he or she wishes. Furthermore, on completion of one of those objectives, the player should receive a reward, which either makes the other objectives easier...
Yeah, the best part of Infinite is what we saw in the promo material.
In Ratchet & Clank.
Why did they put a new producer on top? It feels like sabotage. It's because the game had been in development. I think the game started development after the first BioShock released in 2007. So 6 years later, BioShock Infinite comes out. And like I said, Ken Levine had an enormous staff. Irrational Games was a huge, huge enterprise in the sort of final days of getting things moving and assembling BioShock Infinite, and it was just costing way too much money because apparently he was doing like major script revisions and like major story changes mid-development, and I have heard that he was really bad at organizing that project, and I've also heard that is it called Judas is the next game he's doing. I've heard really disheartening stories from that game about mismanagement and bad leadership, which I think is really tragic if that's the case, because I like Ken Levine as a game designer, and I would really hate to have him be like, it sucks when you have people like Amy Hennig and Ken Levine, like people who know how to make good games, but they just get sort of stuck in these gigantic machines and they go 10 years without putting anything out there. And it really sucks. But yeah, I feel like, yeah.
Whereby if you complete the first planet, 3 or 4 planets become opened up to you, and you can complete them in any way.
He needs to make System Shock 2 too. That's Deus Ex.
Weapon, that lets you open up
well, Deus Ex is like System Shock 3.
On the other planets. And it's this constant flow of gadgets that keeps the player engaged as he learns to use them. Which is why good level design constantly teaches the player something new. Now, previously, when I rehearsed this presentation, this is the spot where I do my Yoda impersonation to keep everyone awake. But it always goes down like an absolute lead balloon, so I'm going to spare you my bad Yoda. And instead, I'm going to tell you about a book called...
What the hell? You know, this would have trended when Mandalorian came out. if he had done his Yoda impression, but he
A
failed.
Theory of Fun by Ray Costa. In this
What do I think of Matthew's video on Infinite, Matthew Matosis? I think it's a very balanced, very fair critique. I agree with a lot of his points. You know, one of the things he said in that video that I never thought about, but after he said it, I'm like, well, that really sums it up. Is that there's a sequence when they give you that baseball and you're meant to either throw it at the interracial couple or you maybe can throw it at Fink. And it's a binary choice system in a first-person shooter rather than just letting you throw the ball. Right? So it's like, and the throw gets interrupted anyways, right? So it wouldn't have been any more complicated to script it and let you throw it into the person standing next to you. You could have actually aimed the ball anywhere because it was always going to be intercepted. So why is this a binary choice? But like Bioshock Infinite also has this problem. I guess this is the Bioshock stream, huh? Bioshock Infinite, not problem. It has this design decision that you have a lot of binary choices and none of them actually matter. And I guess it's a statement on like artificial choices and just, I don't know. I feel like, you know, I think there is definitely something to that, but maybe it just doesn't come together to mean anything.
Ray Costa says that the human mind enjoys processing patterns for storage and retrieval later. And a lot of the fun in playing games is derived from this pattern analysis. If this pattern analysis ends too soon, this processing stops and the enjoyment ends.
Aesir making it sound very pretentious. Yeah, I mean, I guess it is pretentious in the sense that it is pretending to get a point across. Or like that it thinks it has more depth than it does. But you know, it is hard when you really are. I don't hate the game. I can see how compromised it is, and I don't really blame anybody creatively involved for it. But you know, yeah, I don't think you can make a really good story for that game when you have to rewrite the whole thing with pre-existing assets 3 months before release or whatever they had to do.
Constant teaching is any game in the Zelda series. So when you get into a new dungeon in any Zelda game, you pick up a new piece of equipment. And each room in the dungeon teaches you a different way to use that piece of equipment.
Hey, so chat, this is freaking crazy. Ignore this, ignore this. When you enter the dungeon, you can pick up a little lantern, and you use the lantern to burn cobwebs because it has fire in it. And when you're wielding the lantern, first of all, I had to create like 80-something special sprites just to showcase the player holding the lantern. It was a nightmare. I spent like 2 days doing it. But when you're holding the lantern, the field of view actually changes. And it grows wider, and the lighting changes. So yeah, this is the fire tutorial. Really cool. So yeah, one massive Zelda tutorial. Do not ignore this. Ignore this! Ignore this. You're not supposed to judge the spider. Does Snail have a hot goth dommy mommy? Maybe? Hold on, let me see if I have the file here. Oh hey, I still have it! I mean, not really a goth, but like it's the doll from Bloodborne. Very cool. What's her animation? Oh, it's just like the cape. Oh, you know, as a really good animation is oh my god, oh no, what was her name? I can't remember. Crap, does it even matter? Here we go. Yeah, we can work with this. This is, I guess, the closest we have to something goth. But yeah. back to the show.
Then the final boss in that dungeon tests your mastery of the piece of equipment before it even lets you out.
What is the spider's name? It doesn't have a name. It's a spider. A spider cannot sign contracts. What does it have? What use does it have for a name?
And so on and so forth. But it doesn't stop there. Even the game's
Until now, I never heard of a person not saying Infinite is the best Bioshock game.
final boss usually requires the player to use every
Still would.
equipment in an unusual way. And this is quite similar to...
what would I say is the pinnacle of level design in games? I think... Dark Souls gets a lot of love for a reason. I think that it's really hard to sort of quantify anything specific because obviously the standard is so different. Ratchet and Clank, I think, has, generally speaking, pretty good level design. But if those were Silent Hill levels, those levels would suck because they don't sort of highlight that same kind of experience that the game is going for. I think Silent Hill 2 has really good level design. I think Silent Hill 3 has really good level design. I think FromSoft generally has pretty good level design. I think... I think you can probably find a lot of mascot-friendly action platformers from the PlayStation 2 era that have really solid level design, stuff like the Sly Cooper games. Zelda games, I mean, it depends on what you like in levels. I'm not a big fan of dungeons from Zelda. I think they're too much of an aberration from the rest of the experience. But there's a lot of dungeons that I do actually really like. So I guess those have pretty good level design. I actually really like the level design of the water temple in Ocarina of Time. The problem there is the amount of menu flipping you have to do and how it slows down the experience to a crawl. But if you play the 3DS remake and go through the water temple, it's the best temple. It's the best temple in that game by far. There's so many interesting ways of utilizing 3D space. And it flows really well, I feel, when you have that shorter interface and syncing time. Especially when you consider it's like an N64 game, so the game is also trying to teach you to think in 3 dimensions. I think it's very hard to quantify what is the best level design. It's just like games the level design either sells the experience of the game or it doesn't.
Explicitly.
Best by genre. There's so many genres. Though. A lot of the Resident Evils have really good level design.
Challenge the player's mastery of that mechanic. And then just when the player is
its name is Duke Steered Freya.
They'll be something crazy to surprise him.
Bill T. Spider.
That's why the next principle is that good level design is surprising.
Yes, I love this. I hate when I'm playing a game and it's like, go into the house. And I go into the house and it's just a house. Obviously I'm joking here. Like, you can just put a house in a game, that's fine. But I think that I always much prefer when there is something interesting going on in the level design like that. Have I played Okami?
Now,
I haven't.
Obvious, but a lot of designers forget about this. And by surprising, I
Hideki Kamiya,
with loads of monsters jumping out of closets.
Hideki Kamiya refused to pay for a new controller for me.
Sure all of you are super familiar with the classic roller coaster pacing method, which is used to pace pretty much everything in video games. So you have steadily increasing crescendos of intensity, punctuated by troughs of slightly lower intensity. So
and Jak and Daxter, you know what? Jak and Daxter, the Precursor's Legacy, amazing level design. Action platformer, like mascot, kid-friendly, PlayStation 2 era, amazing level design. And that's your answer. That's the best level design in any game ever.
In most games, almost at a fractal level. And it's my belief that if you do this in a game, it becomes predictable pretty fast. So Alex Mandryka, who was formerly the creative director at Relic, wrote a paper on Gamer Sutra in which he explained that fun is actually created through uncertainty. And by constantly flipping the player in and out of his comfort zone, you can create quite a lot of fun. And the best way to do this is to be subversive, to take an existing game design paradigm, like the aforementioned pacing, and flip it. My favorite example of this is the Ishimura level in Dead Space 2. Has everyone here played Dead Space 2? Wow, that's surprising. Not as many people as I thought. That's upsetting.
Chad, have you played Dead Space 2?
Is anyone here going to play Dead Space 2? Because I'm about to spoil the Ishimura level. Well, that's a shame. Anyway, so when you get...
I've played Dead Space 2. It's the only Dead Space I have played.
To the Ishimura in Dead Space 2, the Ishimura is the spaceship in Dead Space 1. You've been fighting necromorphs all the way through the game. And you get to the Ishimura, ooh, it's the spaceship in Dead Space 1, this is going to be full of nasty aliens. And you get in, nothing. Okay, that's a bit strange. 5 minutes later, into the level, you think, okay, right, bring on the aliens. Nothing. 10 minutes into the level, you're like, shit, where are the aliens? Still no aliens. And it's not until 15 minutes into the Ishimura level, when you reach the spaceship central transport corridor, that this massive, great big monster drops from the ceiling, and at this point, you're ready to wet yourself, figuratively speaking, obviously.
Do you guys know why that was? I think we actually had the level designer of that sequence talk in one of these GDC streams and explain the reason. From memory, the problem was that I think it was something to do with processing, and we couldn't spawn in enemies, so they just decided to not have any enemies there, and it just made for an amazing moment, or something like that.
And this is quite cool, so they've disrupted this pacing. I'm quite lucky to know the producer on that level. And when I found out they was responsible, I was really excited. I was like, Matt,
Deadlock is the only Ratchet and Clank game I've played. That's like the worst one. Like, I really like Deadlock. It does some interesting stuff, but like that is the worst Ratchet and Clank game to be the only one that you've played. It is so far removed from the rest of the series. It gives you no idea of what those games are about. I haven't played Dead Space 1. Nah, I haven't played Dead Space 1. I refuse, frankly, until Hideki Kamiya replaces my controller.
We take a course on horror writing. Did you do loads of tests and do psychometric analysis? How did you do it? And he goes, well, no, we didn't really have any choice because we didn't have time to build any new level geometry, so we had to reuse the old Ishimura. And we weren't allowed to change it because that would mess with the canon. And the game director was very insistent that we showcase this massive big monster, and he wouldn't let us use any other monsters as the first encounter in the level, so we didn't have a choice. And this kind of worked out quite well because this restricted design.
Oh, okay.
Forced my friend to take a.
Maybe we didn't watch it in a stream, and maybe I watched this at some point and heard his explanation.
Risk with the pacing.
See, I don't think he was taking a risk with the pacing. It's okay to have like a 20-minute segment in a game that doesn't have any fighting in it, provided you're if you're giving the player some kind of experience. I think that's totally fine.
Risk is important if you want to stand out. Now, it's easy for me to stand up here and talk about taking risks. I see now it's working. It's important for me.
I still don't remember which is Ratchet and Clank and which is Jak and Daxter. Jak and Daxter is the one that looks like Zelda. Ratchet and Clank is the one with the Rat Man and the robot, and you break crates in space. Gothic just got a Switch port. Now is the time for you to do the Gothic video. I'll get right on that. Jak is the cooler one. No. Ratchet is the cooler one. Jak and Daxter is the green hair elf guy and the little Hispanic ferret. Was he Hispanic? I don't remember. I never got Hispanic vibes from him, but maybe.
It's easy for me to stand up here and talk about taking risks, but we all know the problem with risks is that they are inherently risky.
Ratchet is the one I stream every year. Like every January or December, I live stream an entire playthrough of a Ratchet and Clank game. How do you not know the difference?
On paper, but don't forget that what looks good on paper doesn't always work once you get into the game. And oddly enough, the reverse of this is true. Sometimes some really ridiculous ideas actually work very well when you test them in game. It's absolutely crucial that if you've got anything risky, you grey box it and test it as soon as possible. Otherwise, you'll risk getting it cut as your game helps install its next milestone, and your producer's looking at this crazy idea and thinking, that's a bit risky, I'm going to cut it. So
his voice actor.
We designed these awesome little kind of grenade puzzles where you could access hidden areas of the level by chucking grenades down vents and flushing Nazis out of otherwise impregnable bunkers. Unfortunately, very late in production, we hadn't proved it out. It wasn't quite working. It ended up getting cut just because we hadn't tested it enough, or we hadn't tested it early enough. And this was a big shame because it would really help towards the feeling of player empowerment. And this is my favorite slide. The next principle is that good level design empowers the player.
All right.
The 18th century poet, Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, and for those of you that were born after 1985, that's him in the picture.
Hey, okay. This is the best presenter we've seen so far. Can we just say that for a second? Like, Dan Taylor. Dan Taylor is like funny, he has energy, he's like not rambling, he's like got good flow. This is the best presentation we've watched so far, just from like a professional structure standpoint. Really good. Do we have any Goethe fans in chat?
Goethe said that you should dream no small dreams, for they have no power to move the hearts of men. And I think this is the 18th century equivalent of the phrase go big or go home.
He probably keeps forgetting because I stream way beyond sleep time every time. I just, I just value my American viewers much more than you European ones. No, it's just like, I'm at work and then I come home and, if when I get to streaming, it's just late, kind of sucks. Ratchet is the one Shadow the Hedgehog learned from. Jack is the one who learned from Shadow the Hedgehog. Ratchet is the one every Mario game is based on. Jack and Daxter is the one that Naughty Dog is not allowed to make anymore because they'll ruin it.
And why would people want to escape to somewhere that they could go in real life?
Based good, enjoy her.
Real life sucks. Has anyone here seen the TV show Charlie Brooker's Games Wipe?
There's a Destiny 2. Oh yeah, I thought you meant Destiny the streamer, because I have I need to just show you quickly what the interface looks like for me here. So this is what chat looks like to me, and I couldn't see the Destiny 2 because of this ridiculous heart that's on stream. So I thought you were like, well, what about Destiny, the political streamer? He did a GDC talk, and I was like, what? That can't be. What? But no, I haven't seen the Destiny 2 one. We'll do that together one day.
But anyway, in this TV show, the Irish comedian Dara O'Brien explains why he's never got to the third island in GTA 4. Because there's this mission where he has to drive all the way across town in rush hour traffic. And he has to drive carefully so as not to upset the police. And he has to go through a toll bridge. He even has to pay the toll. He has to drive carefully through the gates and not crash. He can't speed through, otherwise he'll upset the police. If he gets caught by the police, he gets arrested and he has to go right back to the start and do it again.
Who thought putting the heart there was a good idea? Who thought
I can drive in rush hour traffic
not letting me turn the heart off was a good idea? It's like Google has way too many people working for them, and so many of them are just doing unnecessary shit like this.
GTA. In most games, players want to be badasses. And a title that does this really well is Red Faction Guerrilla. And it really delivers the fancy of being a Martian rebel.
Okay, I also really like that this guy's pulling from so many different games. I'm a big fan of that.
Across a toll bridge. It gives you a mission to destroy a toll bridge using a sniper rifle that vaporizes metal. Now, this is super, super empowering, as it lets the player see his effect on the environment straight away. And the key gameplay mechanic in Red Faction really helps us, the destructible terrain. So this is kind of an unfair example. But whilst this mechanic does help, you don't need such an obvious mechanic to do this in your levels if you design them to show the player's influence.
Oh.
I like the way that Infamous does this. So many missions in Infamous necessitate a karmic choice of some sort. You can either be good or you can be evil when you complete a mission. And in fact, this karma system is proliferated throughout the entire open world environment. For example, there are bombs throughout the town.
Someone's just spamming the heart.
Or you can let them explode and absorb their power and become stronger, but there's resultant collateral damage. Now, a karma system isn't particularly special in a game. There are lots of games that do it.
Chat, if you don't take it easy on the heart, I'm going to drop an ad on you.
Well, there's a way in which it shows the consequence of your
and Nintendo won't.
So, for example,
was it Nintendo or was it like from? It was somebody. They won't copyright this one.
Choices, the better you become, the more they'll help you. So
I lost out on like 18 cents.
Bad guys you're trying to fight. And conversely, if you're evil, they'll start booing you, in kind of pantomime style, and then they'll start throwing rocks at you, which is a kind of nice little way of showing the player that his actions do have a consequence.
Yeah, he's not only a good speaker, he seems to play a lot of games. Yeah.
Allied hostages in some of the levels that you can rescue, and if you rescue these hostages, they pop up later on in the level to help you out. So depending on how you played some of the levels, if you're a little more daring, they'll be a little easier later on. Which leads me to the next principle. That good level design is easy, medium, and hard.
Whoa.
Now, what on earth does this mean? How can a level be easy, medium, and hard? Well, I've got to confess that I've got a bit of a bee in my bonnet or an axe to grind or what have you with the standard difficulty selection used in a lot of video games.
We have some spamming in chat right now.
It asks the player to make an arbitrary choice which will affect how the entire game handles for him or her with no knowledge of how his skill stacks up against the game mechanics. Why can't the player choose in game simply by playing the game? I'm, of course, referring to the use of risk-reward. So this works in terms of level design by designing multiple pathways through your level. So you always design a basic path through your level to present an easy to medium challenge. And then you have clearly called out high-risk paths with an obvious reward, or conversely, easier paths if your main path starts to get a little tough. And it's important when you do this to use the
We need an easy mode.
And the king of risk-reward in games is burnout. Now, in burnout, on the tracks, there are always narrow shortcuts. They're clearly more risky because they're narrow. They're always called out by a bright yellow barricade, which is their visual language.
Time for an ad break.
And they always provide a really obvious...
I only have 16 concurrent viewers right now. Look, when we get to 30, when we get to 30, that's when I drop the ad on you. I need to because all of you are gonna leave the moment you see the ad. I gotta maximize viewers, and then I can drop an ad on you, and I can pay for like a cup of coffee.
Difficult to select screen in Burnout. Because
Have an ad block. Isn't YouTube? Isn't Google kind of crushing down on that?
You can use a multi-layered approach in RPGs, action adventures, first-person shooters. You can place a powerful weapon in a tricky-to-reach spot, necessitating navigational risk. You can place a dangerous enemy with a clearly called-out flanking route, allowing people who are skilled in stealth an opportunity to reduce the risk. These side paths can also be a puzzle requiring a little more cerebral skill to access. For an example, an object that can be seen, but the route to that object is hidden.
It's trying to, but it's not succeeding. It's wild to me that Google just does not remove ad blockers from their own extension homepage. It's wild to me that on Google Chrome you can just download ad blockers, and Google doesn't do anything about that. It's so weird because they can be so litigious about what you put on the App Store. For example, if you're doing a game and you put it out in the Google Play Store, they can be so litigious. And if you make a video that they don't like on YouTube, they will destroy you and they won't even tell you why they did it. But for some reason, when it comes to the extension page, they're so hands-off. Must not intrude. Must not just make it impossible to install ad blockers. It's really weird.
I have a slight problem with flickering neon lights. Every time
I cut the wheat from the chaff, exposing the fake fans.
When I was at university.
I don't think I'm popular enough to be playing those sorts of games.
They fill the level with multiple paths with various styles and various aptitudes of player. And these multiple gameplay layers also extend the replayability of their levels, which makes for efficient design. And good level design is efficient. Now, this is classic Dieter Rams. A video game always has a very finite amount of resources, whether that's the technical limitations of the hardware that you're developing on, such as the memory or the pixel pushing power, to the real-world constraints like your production.
What's funny is that the ad blockers also act as a form of antivirus. Oh yeah, that's true. That's true. My understanding is that the Zoomers are falling for internet scams at rates even faster than the baby boomers are, which is wild to me. Wow.
And it's a designer's responsibility to maximize the use of those resources.
Firefox
and
easy.
The level designer is not only using the whole animal nose to tail, but doing it more than once and doing it quickly. For this, modular design is your friend.
Yes.
A good level designer doesn't create a level. He creates a series of modular mechanic-driven encounters that you can string together to make a level. And another level. And another level. On top of this...
Did we stream this already? I feel like I'm hearing a lot of stuff that I've seen before here. Aesir, what am I? A boomer? I'm from the silent generation.
This technique also creates a series of familiar moments that the player can use to learn and master your mechanics. I don't know if any of you have had a chance to check out the toolkits that ship with Bethesda games, but these are
I was born in 1908.
They're essentially like medieval Lego or post-apocalyptic Lego, depending on which game you're playing with. And it's through this modularity that such a relatively small team can create such a massive amount of content. And also by applying simple modifiers to these modules, it's possible to create variation and keep things fresh by providing increased challenge and surprise. Modifiers are particularly important for creating bidirectional gameplay.
Good level designers write code that procedurally generate the level. But like you still need to be a good level designer to do that, because there's good procedurally generated levels and there are bad procedurally generated levels. Zoomers are suffering, nobody willing to help them. Maybe the Zoomers need to just stop with their avocado toasts and their pumpkin spice lattes. You know, it's these damn Zoomers. They just don't know how to do it. I know Aesir. Yeah. I gotta point out the obvious. Come on. Miyazaki uses a ton of procedural stuff in Bloodborne and Elden Ring. I think it worked out great. I think the next time they do it, it'll probably be great. I think there's a lot of good stuff, but I think the best moments in Elden Ring are the ones where they clearly put a designer in charge of remolding what the procedural generator vomited out, like the bridge from Altus Plateau. Is it from the Altus? From the one snowy area to the mountaintops. That's a great moment, and those sorts of moments where you can really feel the hands of a level designer is where Elden Ring is at its best. I think it's really evident in the Halleck tree, the first part of the Halleck tree. I think you can feel it in the subterranean shunning grounds. But there's also just a lot of dips in quality from what I know this studio can deliver on. For Bloodborne, I think like most of the procedural generation came through in the Chalice dungeons. They probably have some code to just like spew out like flowers and grass and stuff like that. Some debris here and there. And that's fine. That's fine. I think it'll be better over time. Yeah.
Now,
there's you know what Armored Core. Armored Core I think had pretty good level design. And that was almost all, like almost certainly they just procedurally generated most of that and then tidied it up. I don't think they sat down and like decided, here we're gonna put like a grid and here we're gonna put this down and here we're gonna put this down. It feels a lot more like they just had these assets, like here's a highway, here's like a factory, here's grid components, throw it into the algorithm, let it vomit something out, and then we'll just resculpt it and make it really good. I think that's probably the way those levels were assembled. But maybe they weren't. What do I know?
Making the levels that you design look beautiful. When the unfortunate reality is that most players will blitz through them in a matter of seconds. Now, how do you keep your level artists happy and get the most bang for your art back? Well, you need to reuse the nice artwork from your level. Now, the most obvious way to do this is to make your player backtrack a lot. But backtracking is totally not cool.
Chalice Dungeon Generation felt kind of simplistic, and I hope they would have expanded on it in Elden Ring. Yeah, I completely agree. I had over 1,000 hours of game time inside the Chalice Dungeons. I love the concept. Yeah, also totally agree. I also have probably not thousands of hours in the Chalice Dungeons. I have like hundreds of hours in the Chalice Dungeons, though. Just like that raw loop of finishing another one and another one and another one and falling more and more in love with the game all the while. There was a time when my life just revolved around going to school and then going to high school and then playing Bloodborne Chalice Dungeons. That was like a few months of my life where that was just what I did. It's wild that Bloodborne came out like 8 years ago, huh? We kind of got old, chat. We got old. But, yeah, I really like the Chalice Dungeons. I think I'd like to see them try that again with vastly larger parts. Like, don't just have the 17 different rooms or whatever. Have like 500.
It's totally different to gameplay on the way back. And a game series that does this very well is Halo. So, for example, in Halo 1, the level 343 Guilty Spark is awesome for bidirectionality. It begins as a search mission with exploratory gameplay, and then when you unleash the Flood, all hell breaks loose and it's intense combat on the way back.
Dude needs to lay off the coffee. Yeah, it's fast forwarding.
You fight through a desert level on foot using a sniper rifle, and then when you get to the mission's apex, you get a tank airdropped in, and you can blast your way out of the level in the tank.
I'm not looking forwards to robots mainly creating games in the future. Humans offer the soul where robots do not. Yeah, I mean, I don't feel like you need a human being to sit down and create all the little hills and place all the little rocks and all the little pieces of grass. I'm totally fine with them just getting some AI to vomit out a map for that. They like probably have to sit down, design the basic parameters, and then just let the AI come up with something that they then tune around with. That's how they made the Lands Between in Elden Ring. It's also how they made Starfield. Maybe not such a great example. But yeah, I think that you're just obviously always going to get a better feeling when it's made by a human being, and like it's not necessarily because human beings are better at like you can teach an AI to make level design just as good as Jak and Daxter, the Precursor's Legacy, or Silent Hill 2. You can teach an AI to do it, but or like these LLMs, but there was this test that they made the AIs do where they gave it the wolf, the sheep, and the wheat test, where it's just like a farmer has wheat or like grass or something. He has a sheep and he has a wolf, and he has to take it over a river. Like, in what order does he take it in? Well, he can only take one at a time. So obviously he first takes the sheep, and then he takes the wolf, then he takes the sheep back, then he takes the grass over, then he goes back for the sheep and brings it back. And it's like a really sort of, like it's just a simple logic puzzle. And when you give this logic puzzle to the AIs were completely able to solve it, no problem. But when you add the parameter, like the specific rule that the wolf is vegetarian and the sheep is a carnivore, the AIs didn't know what to do with this. And the problem there is that the AI is really good at sort of scrounging up and solving problems by association. So it can just look at, oh, I know this puzzle, I'll look for it. But because nobody had presented it in this weird way where you swap the roles of the wolf and the sheep, the AI just they couldn't get it solved. And for level design, however good the level design of the AIs is going to get, because it's all based on it doesn't have that logical jump or capacity to sort of massage the level to better congeal with the specific contexts. And I have been paying pretty close attention, I feel, to the development of these algorithmic artworks. I have not yet been convinced that the technology we're using, the sort of associative learning the machine algorithms are using, I have not been convinced that they are going to be able to do that with this. I think there needs to be a different kind of jump for them to develop that skill. What the AIs are really good at is just blending anything together and solving problems by association. So like, if you tell an AI to give you an image of a pink elephant that's made of Buckingham Palace and is also the conqueror of seven galaxies, and it has 74 different beetles in its eyes, right? It's just like, and it's painted with a Van Gogh style mixed with Da Vinci, or just like, you just throw a lot of these words at it. The AI is actually really capable of giving you something that's pretty accurate to what you're describing. But fitting it within a sort of coherent artistic voice, I don't think we've seen that yet. And this is technology that has been developing for like a year now, year and a half, maybe 2 years even, in the public eye. And I have not seen that jump made yet. And I feel like I would have seen that jump made if it was something that these AIs were capable of doing. Maybe it will happen, maybe it won't happen, but yeah. Have I seen AI plays X? No. Maybe I've watched an AI play a video game, but I've never explicitly watched an AI play a video game. Might be interesting though. Sort of. It might be like, I don't know. Would that be interesting? You train an AI on playing like Dark Souls, only Dark Souls. You give it 5 million hours of playing Dark Souls, and then you ask it to play like Pokemon or something like that. I don't know. Would that be interesting? I don't know. It took them 8 years to map out all the dungeons. Oh yeah, that's true. The Chalice dungeons. If they do a Bloodborne 2, they need to honor the community and create a specific Tomb Hunter covenant. I mean, it left the sheep alone with the wolf, so it already lost. AI is good for people who can't put their ideas visually, but not as a fully substitute, in my opinion. Yeah, like I'm not too proud to admit that I've used it. I've used like Dolly AI when I do like enemy design and stuff. But I never put anything the AI makes in the game. It's more like I'll tell it to do in a pixel art style. Show me like a top-down version of like, let's just create a generic enemy here, like a stone pirate. Because it just vomits like 10 images or like 9 images out, and I look at them and I'm like, okay, this is how to do good texture for this. I like this texture. I like the shading of this enemy here, though. Like that sort of stuff, I think the AI is generally pretty good at. And I think like that's actually a really valuable tool where, rather than me sitting there with Sprite or whatever, Photoshop or whatever I'm using to doodle, rather than me sitting there and trying to figure out, like doing these weird tests for how do I want this texture to come out or whatever, like how do I want to doodle this segment, I think letting the AI just vomit 50 different versions of it and then picking the one I like and just mirroring that, I think that's totally fine. I don't see anything wrong with that.
Expanding on this
Takes a lot of useless, wasted time and experimentation out of the sequence.
To provide implicit objectives that require intuition and
I'm a fake gamer. It's true. It's true.
Gears of War and the feathers in Assassin's Creed.
Do I have any videos I would like to remake? because my perspective on a game has drastically changed. I don't think my perspective has changed all that much. There are some videos that I look back at and I'm like, well, I could make a much better video of that today. Like the System Shock video, or the Morrowind video, or the Link to the Past video. Like I could make vastly superior videos now that I know how to do videos. Like maybe Demon Souls. I feel like that video was maybe a bit too anchored on interpretations of bad translations of lore that I maybe should have questioned a bit better. But like, no, I don't think my perspective on games has changed all that much.
These rules encourage non-linear exploration and extend the gameplay with no extra hits to production. But these are actually not great examples of non-linear gameplay. Because it's very important that you don't create gameplay for gameplay's sake, just to pad out your game. You need to keep your non-linearity relevant by incentivizing the player, by calling out clearly the reward in advance. The heart in Dishonored is a great example of this. In fact, you should also try and tie these objectives into the main narrative thread. There's this awesome old Game Boy Advance.
AI designed to be the ultimate Souls player. Streamers would love that. Does anybody remember when Microsoft came out with their AI? It's like Tai... Wasn't it called Tai Zat or something like that? And within a day, they just let it loose on the internet to engage with people. And within a day, the internet had managed to make it like a racist, Jew-hating... I think it was like a Nazi sympathizer by the end, and Microsoft just had to pull that stuff. It was insane to watch. And like, yeah, Microsoft, what did you think was gonna happen? Tai was the name of it, yeah.
Astro Boy Omega Factor.
There was also that time when the Chinese had their own AI. Like, I think it was like a government affiliated AI they put out there, and they had to pull it because it began. I think it was like really pro free markets, and I think it was very disparaging towards communism, and I think it was also like really pro America or something like that, and they decided they needed to pull it. I don't know about that one though. I remember the Thai example really well. The communist Chinese AI, I don't super remember how that story went, but I think it was something funny like that.
Replaying the levels a key narrative element. Once you finish the game and play through all the levels, you're treated to a really quite a disappointing ending. But somebody appears and sends Astro Boy all the way back in time.
And that kind of gets to like the utilization of these AIs for creative projects like this, which is that you tend not to get what you're looking for when you do it like this.
And weapons that he's collected. He can then play through the game, zapping backwards.
Time may be gone, but not forgotten.
Select the levels, defeat monsters that he couldn't defeat before, open up secret areas, and ultimately get the much more rewarding true conclusions to the game.
AI is taking over so much, it's still early enough to be able to tell. Apparently Angry Joe is using ChatGPT to write his reviews. Oh my god! Yeah, I mean, I think it's also just... I think the thing about AIs is that they really lower the threshold for entry for so many things, be it script writing, be it making images and stuff. And if you're satisfied, if you're like, there's a lot of people who can just put on music that doesn't require any thought to, like, I don't know, like Drake. Drake to me sounds like music that an AI could very easily assemble. And there's a lot of people who just want to put on Drake, and they don't notice a difference between Drake and the AI Drake. So if you have like that sort of low energy attachment to the media you consume, the AIs are probably just gonna remove all of those people from the circulation, and you'll just be left with listening to the AIs. But I don't think the AIs do a lot to raise the ceiling while they're lifting the threshold, while they're pulling the threshold down so much. So I feel like you just get this sort of inundated. It's kind of like when Etsy became a bigger company, it just sort of destroyed itself by being completely vulnerable to Chinese dropships of just cheap mass manufactured crap, when the website was very specifically meant to be created for like an avenue for handcrafted stuff, like passionate, like that sort of community. And then it's just like here's something that was assembled in a factory. Like there's 5 million units of this stuff, and for all of this YouTube stuff, for images of superheroes and stuff like that, you just get flooded with really mediocre crap from the AIs, and yeah, it kind of sucks. But at the same time, I mean, you know, it's here, and unless they're gonna ban it, which I don't think they're going to, you know, we're just gonna be stuck with it. But you know, that doesn't mean that, like, you know, it's kind of like, you know, an AI can write an essay on The Great Gatsby or on like The Catcher in the Rye or something like that. But the point of having kids write those essays is not that we need those essays. It's to develop critical thinking skills within those people. And in the same way, the pursuit of art is not the pursuit of having a lot of stuff to hang on our walls. The pursuit of art is to develop the human being. And that's, you know, so people are still going to be involved in the arts. Don't worry. You know, it's just, you've just flooded the market with a lot of low quality trash. If you're really passionate about the artistry, the AIs basically don't matter. They might take away some commercial opportunities for people, and that really sucks. But you know, I'm not as black-pilled on the future of the artistic scene as a lot of people are. AI is banned in Mass Effect. It's banned in Dune too. All computers are banned in Dune.
It's pretty cool because when you do complete it, the finale is really emotional. Which is why rule number 9 is that good level design creates emotion. Last year, the US Supreme Court
Cries in artist language.
declared that video games were legally art, which is ace. According to the
Thanks,
dictionary,
Supreme
art
Court.
is the quality, production, expression, or realm, according to aesthetic principles, of what is beautiful, appealing, or of more than ordinary significance. Now, this is a kind of dry, pragmatic definition of art to me.
Yeah. Has the Supreme Court said that AI is art? I don't think so. Therefore, it isn't art.
I like to think art is anything specifically created to provoke an emotional reaction. So paintings, sculpture, photography, music, movies, all of these are created to encourage some kind of emotional response in a recipient. This is particularly true for an interactive medium like video games.
Socks declared that gay video games? Is that what the caption said?
Architecture. And architects have been playing with people's emotions for hundreds and hundreds of years, and there are loads of great architectural theories we can steal from them. For example, windows. If windows are placed below knee height, that's because the architect wanted to convey the feeling of power and voyeurism. Conversely, if windows are placed above shoulder height, the architect wanted to invoke a feeling of persecution and imprisonment, although I'm not entirely sure why an architect would want to do that unless he was designing a prison. Architects make curved rooms with no corners to induce a feeling of womb-like calm in their buildings. There are also a lot of classic level design tricks that you can use to create.
I always enter my my curved rooms, and it's like, I'm back in the womb, baby.
Spatial empathy.
Hey, we were talking about that game
You can
earlier.
use tight corners to limit the player's field of view, keep him tense and suspicious and claustrophobic. You can make your level twisty and labyrinthian to create confusion and panic. Alternatively, you can blow that space wide open to create a feeling of isolation and epic scale. Even switching from narrow space to a large space is a great technique to force the player to look at a specific vista to create a sense of wonder. You can bring verticality into the mix to create a feeling of persecution by attacking the player from above, a feeling of vertigo by making the player scale a high mountain or a high building, or a feeling of hope by placing a reward at the top of a tall building.
Do we agree with this, chat? I'm thinking there's definitely moments of navigating areas where I think this really applies, but I feel like all of this, I think this is a lot truer in reality than it is in games. I think that I don't feel super persecuted when enemies attack me from above. I just feel like, oh, that's another challenge I have to overcome.
The new Tomb Raider does this really well. It goes from super narrow caves to wide open jungle and really leverages the space, or lack thereof, to create emotion. And aside from spatial empathy, when designing for emotion, I personally find that the best technique is to work backwards. So your starting point should be the desired emotional response that you want to evoke from the player. Then you should drill down and select the spatial parameters, the narrative elements and mechanics that you want to use to elicit that emotion. So if you want to make the player feel persecuted, put an enemy AI into your level that constantly hunts him. If you want the player to feel exhilarated, engage them in a high-speed chase or a firefight in a large open space or an open road.
Okay, that I think is a lot. This I think is a lot more real to how games actually work.
For the sense of urgency, modify your core mechanics with some kind of time limit. if you want the player to feel a sense of...
The Last of Us ruined a generation of games. See, I don't agree. I think The Last of Us homogenized a lot of games, and I think there's definitely damage done there when every game just follows that same basic model. But what preceded The Last of Us was not this, wild west of great artistic expression. What preceded it was basically, 6 or 7 years of games that were being homogenized towards like every game has to have a multiplayer online shooter aspect, and every game, you need to have crafting, and you need to have this, and you need to have that. And The Last of Us, while I don't think it's a great game, the model that it gave games to follow was at least not quite as trashy as most of the AAA games prior to The Last of Us on the PlayStation 3, like the 7th gen console was. Ideally, we would have seen a continuation of the 6th gen principle of every game gets to be very different. But if we have to have every game homogenized, which we don't have to, that's not what we want. But I feel like The Last of Us is probably the best game for these games to rip off. I'd much rather these games play like The Last of Us than shit like Call of Duty or anything like that.
Desperation, give them an almost impossible goal.
The Last of Us turned so many games into cinematic experiences more than interactive mediums. Yeah, but like I said, like Uncharted had done that before, and you can really see that in... I feel like you can see some of that even in the Mass Effects. You can see some of that. I think Call of Duty did a lot more. Like the Call of Duty campaigns did a lot more to normalize that. And even the great Hideo Kojima, his hands are not quite clean on that front. Why is The Last of Us getting flack for pioneering movie games when you can say Kojima was the progenitor for this? Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely like AAA gaming before and after The Last of Us. Even though, Kojima is what normalized this model. But not everything played like Metal Gear Solid. Even though things a lot of games were structured like Metal Gear Solid, nothing played like Metal Gear Solid. But a lot of games are structured like The Last of Us and play like The Last of Us.
And then save them at the last minute, like Company of Heroes does in the Carentan mission. Now, this is an interesting mission for me because in this level of Company of Heroes, you're asked to protect the town of Carentan against a Nazi invasion force until Allied reinforcements arrive. And so, if you guys had thought the same thing that I did when I was given that mission objective, I thought, that's cool, all I have to do is hold out for a certain amount of time, and then my reinforcements will arrive. But Company of Heroes effectively lies to the player about the mission parameters, because the reinforcements aren't triggered by a timer, they're triggered by the number of soldiers you have left alive. So they will only ever appear when you have 2 soldiers left.
Oh.
This makes this battle super, super intense. And in fact, using the game mechanics like this to create emotion is possibly the single most important goal of a level designer.
Yeah, but this emotion dies the moment you know how it works.
Which is why the final
trick
principle is that good level design is driven by mechanics.
All right.
Now, there's I read this quote.
I feel like I've said this in like 20 videos at this point, but yeah, it is driven by mechanics.
Apologies to whoever I'm stealing it from because I couldn't find it again. I don't know who said it. But the quote goes that books let you imagine extraordinary things, movies let you see extraordinary things, but video games let you actually do extraordinary things.
It's my quote. He's quoting me and he's not crediting me.
So, above all else,
FYI.
great level design is driven by this interaction with game's mechanics. Game levels don't just provide the context or the setting for the mechanics, they provide the very reality in which they exist. Now, I'm going to apologize in advance for this next slide and for the slightly highfalutin word smithery, but I like to describe a game's level as the metaphysical medium through which the gameplay is delivered.
Whoa.
So I'm going to expand on this by means of an analogy, and I like to think of your video game.
A good magician never reveals
So the
his
subject
tricks.
of your
It's
painting,
true.
those are your gameplay mechanics of the game.
Oh yeah, my creaky chair.
What gives your subject its context? That's your narrative and your graphics. The medium, the actual oil and canvas that you paint your painting with, is your game's level. Your level should be a gameplay delivery system whose primary function is to leverage your mechanics to create a great experience. Topology, architecture, objectives, interactions, combat scenarios, etc. should all be designed to showcase your game's mechanics. Now, it's important to have a thorough understanding of your mechanics in order to do this, But I appreciate this isn't always possible as your mechanics and your levels are being developed concurrently. But you should always have a rough idea of the sort of systems that are being built. Conversely, this can work the other way around. If you have
At least there's no angry dog or screaming babies. That's true.
Engineer
That's
or
true.
your lead gameplay designer to see if you can get a mechanic to support it. In fact, interdisciplinary communication between engineers, designers, and artists is absolutely crucial if you want to have a strong level design team. My favorite game one of my favorite games for mechanic-based design is Deus Ex: Human Revolution. So the levels in Deus Ex, they have multiple paths that showcase the stealth mechanics and the combat mechanics. They have specific moments for the player to use their augments. So areas where you can use your bionic arms to punch through walls, your reinforced back to lift up heavy objects and reveal new paths through the level. Unsuspecting enemies who are standing at the bottom of a really tall building, so you can use your Icarus drop to wipe them out in a really flashy way. Even the secondary missions have been designed to leverage the mechanics. So my favorite one is a mission where you have to stun somebody and then drag their body over a balcony to make it look like a suicide. And this highlights the non-lethal takedowns.
And I'm not laughing out of boredom. That's true. That's true.
This particular
Hey, that was a good stream, though.
mission is a really good example.
Yeah, and I'm not ranting because this is a good like he's giving a good presentation. I like a lot of what I'm hearing.
Of
Am I yawning?
And when you start to showcase your mechanics,
It's late.
It's important that you don't just rinse and repeat the same little setup over and over again. You need to find creative ways to modify these mechanics and keep them fresh. The Riddler challenges in Batman Arkham
You guys
is a really
kept
good
talking
example of
about
this, where
yawns.
the player has to use his equipment in clever new ways to unlock puzzles.
Did this brother just seriously say that? Is he trying to tell me that the Riddler sections in these games suck? So there's good Riddler, like the best utilizations of the Riddler is when you enter a new area and you go into detective mode and you get a new riddle and you actually have to look around the environment to solve the riddle. When you're hunting for those damn trophies, that always sucks in those games.
This is cool because it extends the playtime and keeps the player learning. And the resultant cerebral gameplay fuels the fantasy of being the world's greatest detective, rather than just a man in a cape who's great at kicking ass.
Hideo Kojima is one of the most handsome men in the industry. You'd be well to not usher his wrath upon you, or whatever.
So, there it is again. Good level design is fun to navigate. Create a clear visual language, but feel free to throw in some chaos. Good level design does not rely on words to tell a story. Use implicit and emergent narrative rather than explicit.
You never enjoyed the Batman games? I think the Arkham games were great, the first two.
Complete in any way or order they want. Good level design constantly.
I almost started a rant on the Riddler.
Engaged by continuously introducing or subverting new mechanics. Good level design is surprising. Don't be afraid to take risks with the pacing, aesthetics, or any other elements. Good level design empowers the player. Video games are escapism. Let the player feel the impact of his actions. Good level design is easy, medium, and hard.
He's comparing himself to Charlton Heston.
Good level design is efficient, designed for modularity, bidirectionality, and non-linearity, and lots of other arities.
Don't you know the
Good level design
classics?
creates emotion. It begins at the end with the desired emotional response and works backwards to select the appropriate mechanics to elicit that response. And good level design is driven by the game's mechanics. Above all, it showcases the game's mechanics through the medium of the level to reinforce the uniquely interactive nature of video games. And those are the 10 principles of good level design.
By far, the best GDC presentation we've seen so far. Now for the Germans in the crowd asking their questions. Yes. So I am working on a game. I'm working on a little game, and I wonder what would you do in this scenario. That accent got progressively less German as as I started adding words to the sentence, but whatever.
If anyone's got any questions, I would be happy to answer them, as long as they're not too hard.
Empowering the player is one I can argue because you could make a great level, but disempowering the player, like taking away an ability for that area or something hazardous like that. Yeah. I agree with that. I think empowering the player probably could be substituted for directing a good experience for the player. Like, I love that moment at the end of Outlast when you're escaping. I think you're escaping from a church or something, and you drop your camcorder. And you have to just walk around in pitch darkness. And it's the best moment in the entire game. Sounded more Indian. Hey now. That would be racist. And we don't do that here. That's an Indian accent? Oh no. It's those damn Indian Germans. It's not an Indian accent. Aesir complains about people getting his accent wrong. Yeah, you're gonna leave us then? It's nice having you. Bye-bye.
Hello. Hey, thank you. Thanks for the talk.
Aesir speaks with an Indian accent.
Want to switch to good level design is written by emotion and fueled by the mechanics. If we look at the runaway hit of Journey that just happened, it's about the emotion there. It's what emotion is elicited through the game in the player, and the mechanics are all there to not empower, but to help underline that emotion. Like the mountain level, that it wasn't about making you feel great. It was about making you feel horrible.
So just to make sure I understand, your question is that it should be more about an emotional reaction than the empowerment?
I'm thinking that if we focus on...
Pedro, is this you? Were you in the audience when he gave this chat? When he gave this talk?
Coming through the player, or we're trying to put into the level, instead of focusing on the mechanics.
People just leaving. Yeah, see, this is where he shows his weakness. If this was me, I'd be like, hey, you goofballs, sit your ass down and ask me some damn questions.
Have much more emotional experiences. I just want to know what your thoughts are on that.
I think, so focusing on the emotions rather than the mechanics. So switching rules 9 and 10, essentially, is what you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah, you can totally do that. In fact, it's kind of an odd order. I tried really hard not to give these, to list these in order of priority, even though I put what I thought was the most important one at the end. But you can weight them however you like. I think if you're designing
no questions, no free pizza.
And you're picking the mechanics.
I would simply say that if you leave before the Q&A, you're not a real gamer, and they would all have to turn around.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. I'm just worried about putting too much of a focus on empowerment makes us...
I should watch Yahtzee's GDC talk too. Did Yahtzee do a GDC talk, or is this a joke?
To my disgrace, I only played it a couple of weeks ago, and it was awesome.
Yeah, you would scream with an Indian accent. Hey, listen, guys, you can't leave. I'm gonna go full-on racist mode right now to keep you in the conference. People power walking at double speed.
And I thought, ooh, my level design presentation is about going in guns blazing.
GDC,
what my friend like to call the most important boy in the universe syndrome, where she thinks
he did
most
do
people play
one,
video games,
apparently.
they feel like the most important boy in the universe. But I think you could certainly not twist, but repurpose the empowerment principle to make it about being emotionally empowered. So being able to feel really sad, or it's more about really delivering on the fantasy that you want the player to feel, which doesn't necessarily have to be about being He-Man or being big and powerful.
Racist Viking, yeah. I'd be like, guys, I can't be racist. I'm a Viking.
I was just wondering how your...
And then people would leave even faster.
The multiplayer aspect of levels.
Ooh, interesting. Sure. I kind of wrote those from a single-player perspective in mind, but I would have to give that a little more thought. I'm going to defer that one and answer you by email. Ping me an email. I'll have a think about it and get back to you.
Will do.
Will do.
Hi, great talk. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much.
My question
These people aren't
is
German.
Based on a couple of your rules, to me, seem to really encourage the player to take the time to figure out how to do things on their own.
Yes.
And the downside to that is obviously that the longer the player is working at that, the higher their level of frustration is climbing.
Mm-hmm.
I was wondering how you approach actually creating player frustration to enable them to actually, discover new mechanics on their own instead of having text on screen to direct them.
I think it's very important to trust the player to work out your mechanics. There's this constant kind of balancing act you have to do between the amount of work and effort you put into a certain part of your level design and the percentage chance that the player is going to work it out. Different studios have very different approaches to this. I remember on Medal of Honor, a lot of the secondary objectives.
Oh, it wasn't a GDC talk. Was it like a Dragon's Direct or whatever that's called?
Too cool to leave as secondary objectives, which was kind of odd for me. No, they're not too cool, which is kind of strange.
No, I'm not Icelandic. I'm secretly Indian.
Yeah, it's a matter of trust.
Always have been.
There's no easy, quick answer for that, I'm afraid. Sorry.
So I had a quick question about what you were talking about with efficiency specifically.
Okay.
You mentioned that you think that bidirectional levels are a very good idea, and I definitely agree. But back when I was playing games such as like Halo 1, back in the day, all my friends my Half-Life playing friends, I was too poor to have a good PC. My Half-Life playing friends, they would say things like, oh, well, why would you play a game with so much copy and paste level design? So I was wondering, like, what is a good way to make sure you don't make the players feel like it's too repetitious if you're playing backwards in a level, even if the gameplay is different?
I think there are a couple of ways you can do this, actually. So in terms of the gameplay, I've discussed using a modifier to change the gameplay on the way back. You can also do stuff with the lighting and the geometry so that it looks totally different depending on which direction you're approaching it from. You can do subtle little things to make it all feel different. I think Halo is...
You can also just like use the geometry itself. Like when your first go through of a level, you're walking up, walk back, you're walking down. Up a hill, down a hill, feels
It's
different.
possibly a dangerous example to talk about because there are some parts of the game which are beautifully bi-directional, and there are other parts of the game where it's like, oh, you're making me walk through the same copy-pasted level again and again and again. And I think one of the important things to remember...
I wonder if
Halo
Ubisoft
and
developers
Half-Life,
attended.
Half-Life took 7 years to make, I think, or something like that. So they probably had plenty of time to make lots of nice levels.
People in Iceland don't believe in gnomes. That's a myth.
Hello. About your bit on dynamic difficulty,
Yes.
you brought in the fact that some games will hide special weapons for all sorts of little secrets for the player who wants to
I
take
felt
a
that
challenge
guy
further
had a
and search
German
around.
accent for a second.
These players who are more willing to face more difficult challenges are most of the time rewarded with a weapon or an item that makes the game easier for them. How do you keep that balance without just making the game easier for those who have worked harder on it?
I think you need to be cognizant of that when you design the reward for the risk. So, for example, if you put a big weapon in a game, you need to make sure there's a reason for that to be used. And if you want to put in an extra bit of risk reward, it's important to balance.
I feel like with this stuff, like a better weapon, I feel like the conceit of a better weapon should also just be that if you're not good enough at the game to do this extra stuff to get the weapon, you shouldn't have the weapon, because the weapon is just so skill intensive anyways that the average player just wouldn't enjoy using it. It's like the mine weapon from Ratchet and Clank 2. It's the best weapon in the entire Ratchet franchise. It is insanely difficult to be good at it, and that's what makes it such a good weapon.
It so that it doesn't break the overall difficulty curve. And if you want to be really, really advanced to kind of fix, like to patch a problem, if you can dynamically up...
I promise you, German Indians, you don't always get the Germans.
But the player will face if he collects the rocket launcher, say, for example.
Thank you.
I've completely failed to repeat people's questions. I do apologize for that. I'll try and do that with this one.
Hi. Yeah. As the years go by, I've noticed that obviously games have been reaching a wider variety of audiences. And I have some friends that they
There's
are not
never
really
a
gamers, and
German.
they have started to play games, like recent games, and a lot of them get lost a lot in environments. They don't know like where to go.
Chat, relax. We have 8 minutes
And
left,
for me, it
or
seems
like
completely intuitive, and people that do play
6
games for years
minutes
notice
probably.
They do. So I think maybe some people it's harder for them to understand maybe what to do in certain types of level design. Do you think that because of this, and since games are becoming like so big and
I would like to see
them,
devs explain
is level
themselves.
design
I would like to see the Germans explain themselves.
to-
Why aren't they attending these conferences?
Yeah, to be easier for more people to understand what's going on, or is it just like people just need to adapt? I don't know. Do you think that is happening? Is that an issue?
That's an interesting question. So, if I understand
Chat, do
you're
we
asking
have
if
any
I think
interesting level design questions for him? Hey, bozo. Did you just level design an entire clown car? Oh no, that's just your car? Because you're a clown, bozo? Got him.
come down to accommodate a broader audience of players who aren't necessarily familiar with the visual tropes to guide people through levels. I think it is to
We need ADAC to attend one of these. We need to crowdsource for ADAC to attend all of these. And he need ADAC, you need to ask questions in all of them so that I can point out that there's a German in all of them.
But I imagine it's probably quite helpful for a lot of players who weren't familiar with navigating a 3D space. When we put Medal of Honor together, the navigability...
Do you have Battletoads? What kind of question is that? What kind of question is that of the guy? Do you have Battletoads? Battletoads out of here, you bitch. While the Skyrim dungeons have a back way you can't enter and only exit, it's a one-way Valve kind of scenario. Oh yeah, that's because that's just so you don't have to walk your ass back to the dungeon all the time. The Ratchet and Clank levels are actually designed the exact same way. Like, they always give you a teleporter at the end, or they just naturally loop back to the ship by having you jump down to it, or take a taxi to it or take like a zip line or something to it. It's just like economic design. Players, generally speaking, don't like walking back through long tunnely levels. It's also just because you've already cleared everything out in the level, so they would have to go back and like create an array to store new enemies to spawn in on your way back, or they would have to just have minutes of no gameplay at times. So it's just I think it's just playtesting revealed that that's the best solution to it. That's not a loading screen, and that isn't as process heavy. But I don't know. I also feel like with Skyrim specifically, I guess there's a really strong case to be made that that game sort of needs that. But in a smaller game, if it didn't have a million gauntlets, I think it's fine to let the player just walk through an empty space after they've killed everybody. Like, let the player walk backwards. I think that's totally fine. If you have like 6 dungeons in your entire game, that's fine. If you have 500, yeah, probably best not to.
Ability of the levels is a really big problem.
Skyrim is soured on me, doesn't hold up at all. Todd fumbled the football. Todd is a hack. He's a thief.
Compass markers. You have a little compass which will point you in the direction you have to go. You have a big arrow on the screen that told you where to go. The soldiers would lead you through the level, so they'd always kind of leapfrog over you to guide you through that, and people still didn't know where to go. So it's quite a complex problem. Aside from doing the Dead Space or Perfect Dark trick of actually pinging on the floor and showing the player exactly where to go, there's no way that you can really explicitly direct the player somewhere without breaking some of the immersion, I think. Okay. So again, it's about finding a balance. That's not really a great answer, but hopefully that's okay.
Okay, thank you.
A common problem that I see in game design is whenever you're about to battle a boss.
Yeah. Oh, he's talking about moving his lips. That's brilliant.
Sorry, but whenever I'm about to fight a boss, you mentioned the surprise element in level design.
Yeah.
But I find that I always know a boss is coming because I enter a room that's just full of ammunition. And I imagine that you have to combat that because, like, I'm the kind of guy that's going to just burn through my grenades, and then I find the boss.
Okay, so I don't think this is a problem. I love when a game gives me a room full of trash, like full of health pickup, full of ammo, full of whatever, and it's like, okay, now we're gonna fight a boss. I love that. Something else I love that it is astonishing to me that this has not been intentionally done in games is when the game skips frames to sell the impact of something. So like you're fighting a gigantic boss and like your PlayStation 2 is just dying trying to render the thing and it just starts dropping some frames. That is so, like, it gives any encounter such weight, and I feel like there's actually a really strong argument to be made that games should insert some dropped frames if they want to really sell the impact of a moment. Obviously not not frames where the player is vulnerable or can take damage or anything like that, but like just to give a game sort of that oomph.
Awesome, like crap, I should have saved the grenades. And so you're kind of combating against numbskulls, but also destroying that.
Who's laughing now? Todd Howard.
So that's interesting. I think what you've got there is...
Well, he released Starfield, so who's laughing now? Todd Howard! I actually feel like Starfield probably was a really fun game to work on.
When I'm playing shooters, whenever I walk into a room that's full of boxes that come up to about here, it's like, yeah, okay, there's lots of cover in this room, so people are going to pile in through the doors at the end. So it puts me in a very different mindset. Somebody who's, oh, look, Greg's, that's nice. So yeah, I think it's difficult to design around that. It almost feels like the opposite problem from the previous question, where you've got such a preloaded knowledge that you can anticipate what's going on, and that's why it's really important to disrupt that kind of standard paradigm and the pacing and the layout. I wouldn't be able to give you a specific example of a boss fight that comes out of nowhere, apart from that Deus Ex example that Thomas Grip gave, where you sneak around and then suddenly there's a cutscene. But that's probably a bad example, so I'll stop there. Does that answer your question?
A bit, yeah. Thank you.
A bit, yeah.
Hi, I was recently talking to someone at a bigger studio, and they were saying a lot of their setups were driven by...
But also, like, Demon's Souls doesn't do this. Demon's Souls doesn't stock you up on resources every time you're about to fight a boss. Sometimes you just, like, spend 20, 30 minutes navigating your way through a level for the first time, and at the end it's just like, oh, now it's a fog wall. Like, seriously? No shortcut? No healing items? I'm just supposed to wing it against the boss? You guys kidding me?
Testing and the feedback they were getting, so testers would score it based on how fun it was. And a lot of the design was being changed around because they were getting higher scores in certain setups. You know, like, so they were taking out puzzles and whatnot. And so
we have
like
3 minutes left and there's no Germans.
The original creative direction.
I think we may only have one more question.
So you're asking if consistently playtesting and updating your game takes away from the initial creative vision that you had in mind.
Yes.
So this is an interesting personal point for me, because whilst I think it's super, super crucial to play through your levels, in fact, I like in level design to, hang on, is it level design or playing level design? Yeah, I like in level design to having a kitchen. Right? Your level is like your kitchen. When you're in your own level, you know exactly where the knives and the forks and the spatulas and the spoons are. When you cook in somebody else's kitchen, it is quite stressful, because
You're in the camp that most games should be frame adjusted, just like Bayonetta or Beautiful Joe, where the frame rate drops, the game just runs slower. Oh, that's an interesting take. Yeah, though, I mean, I could vibe with that.
which drawer the spoons and I don't know where the pots are, what's going on. And I think you've always got to bear in mind that the player is going to be cooking in your kitchen. So you've got to do the best to make your kitchen.
I'm also of the opinion that, and this is a really controversial, like, gang, gather around. This is like really controversial opinion time here. I don't think 60 frames per second is a must for every game. I think anything above 24 frames a second basically only matters in games where you have crosshair aiming, or you have like where the game is really focused on time-sensitive button prompts, like getting a shot off or doing like some combos or stuff like that. In those games, yes, I think high frame rates are always a must. But like a game like Silent Hill 1, where reaction timing doesn't matter in anything really, that game could play with like 10 frames a second and it would be fine.
To kind of standard layout and not put your cutlery in the bottom drawer, because that's weird.
Will I be playing the King Kong game?
This always reminds me of...
No,
great.
I will not. I saw people dogpiling on that on Twitter earlier. And something I'm hating on newer boss designs is that they design bosses where you die while it is... Wait a minute. Well, boss design where they design bosses where if you die while it is half health, then you come back to the fight. It still has its health halved while your resources are restored. Yeah, I could see that. Gather around the campfire. I agree. 60 frames per second isn't necessary unless it's an online PvP for me. Sometimes I actually prefer 30. Ooh, that's spicy.
Alan Moore quote, who says that you shouldn't listen to what anyone says about your design.
Like, I don't think 60 frames per second... Like, I don't think a higher frame rate ever really detracts from a game for me. But I feel like unless I'm explicitly doing, I need specific frames to react to or pull off shots or whatever, I don't feel they are a must. I'd always prefer, I guess I would always prefer to have higher frame rate, but they're not always a must for me.
I'm your critics. You need to be your critic. You need to, because you know when you make something, you know how good or how bad it is. So as long as you approach your initial vision with a really well-balanced type of self-criticism.
So, chat, what if, he's talking about when you're designing your stuff, you need to be your own critic. What if I decided to be my own critic, but I was like the nostalgia critic? Could you imagine that?
You should be able to accommodate the feedback you get and filter it out accordingly. I think I've got time for two more questions. 2 minutes left.
I'm curious, out of your entire career, all the levels you designed, what is the one that you're the most proud of or felt was the most successful?
My favourite level that I've designed is the opening level to Medal of Honor Heroes 2.
A bad critic that can't make a funny if his life depended on it. He has made one funny joke.
It's the tutorial level, and it was.
I will not have this slander. He was funny once in one video.
Really clearly teach the player the kind of crazy new motion controls of the Wii. But
just playtesting my game like the like a nostalgia critic persona.
We actually managed to create something that kind of captured the spirit of the Normandy beach landings from the original Medal of Honor, but at the same time as the tutorial. Explosions didn't really have much of an effect on the player's health. There were loads and loads of enemies, but they shoot at your friends and not at you. But if you move past the enemies would turn around and target you. So it was a really nice tutorial. It felt really exciting, it felt really intense, but it also did a really good job.
That's the game I'm going.
Every section of the
No, I wouldn't make videos about it. It's just like for me. For me. I would just sit here like a jackass with like a cap and a red tie and in a suit, and I would just like scream at the at the screen whenever something I didn't like in my game happened. And that's how I do my QA.
So it was a lot of fun for me to work on.
Do a Doug Walker impression.
Thank you.
Oh, but he talks something like this. He said 2 more questions, and we only got 1. This is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. It's an outrage. What else does he say? He's like, I'm a nostalgia critic. I remember it, so you don't have to. Gather around, children. We're gonna watch a shitty movie, and I'm gonna say that it's shitty, and I'm gonna make loud noises, and I'm gonna have weird skits with some of my friends. And I'm not friends with those people anymore. I think one of them went to California to be an actor, and the other one I don't really talk to anymore. It's like it's really like 2010. It's like really weird YouTube stuff of like these personas all have lore. Like there's nostalgia critic lore about like, oh no, the nostalgia critic isn't. The planet is frozen over, and you need to save the planet by doing a review of a shitty movie. That would be an entertaining way to do Q&A. It would be an insane way to do Q&A. Do a Spoonie impression. Which one was Spoonie? I don't remember Spoonie. I didn't watch enough, clearly. Just out of curiosity, knowing your love for From, did you ever watch H-Bomber Guy's videos for Dark Souls 2 and Bloodborne? I don't really watch other content creators. Like I watch lore videos, but like for game design stuff, I really don't watch other content creators on a lot of games, because I have a lot of fully formed opinions myself. And I'm not saying like I'm smarter than anybody, but I don't think H-Bomber Guy has any perspective on like the level design of Dark Souls 2 that I haven't considered. And maybe he has, but it's probably nestled in between like 20 minutes of stuff that I feel like I already know. So yeah. Just don't, they're awful. Oh. My impressions are interesting. Give me more character. I'll do more impressions. I'll do 1 more impression and then we'll sign off. Give me another impression, chat. You only watch hidden gem channels like this one? Aw, thank you. Thank you. I will sell out one day, though. Don't you worry. Assassin's Creed VR announced. God damn it. The heart is in the way. Live reaction. I don't care about Assassin's Creed. Good for people who like Assassin's Creed, I guess. Do Angry Joe. I can't do it. Like, I don't... I don't know what he sounds like. Give me somebody else. When Aesir gets big, we need an Aesir con. But the thing is, the Aesir Aesthetic YouTube channel is already a con. The gutter is better than Blighttown because you can only go through it. Wait, because you can only go through it one way? Is that an actual quote? That's an insane quote. You just wanted sassy thoughts? Oh, on Assassin's Creed VR? I don't have any sassy... I'm really mellow. I don't ever rant or have sassy thoughts or anything. Everyone flies out to Iceland. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, everybody has to fly out to Iceland. Maybe I'll just... You know what? The next time they do like an EVE Online event or something... Actually, they just had DICE here in Reykjavik. I could have gone to that thing. I think it cost like $1,000 or something insane to attend that. And I could have probably gotten a media pass. And I could have met Shuhei Yoshida. And Shu and I, we could have had hot dogs together. And I could have met with Mark Cerny. I think Mark Cerny was here. But maybe he wasn't. But I didn't. But next year we'll just do, if they do another DICE here, I'll just do my own conference from a garage. I'll contact one of my friends and I'll ask if I can use their garage, and I'll do my own conference. And you're all free to come. You're all free to come. Make a Yahtzee in person. I don't know what Yahtzee sounds like either. Is Yahtzee one of the guys who talks like this? Hello, everybody. It's me, Bloody Yahtzee. I'm doing a video, yeah? I have like blimey. I have some cheeky British jokes to come in here. Like I'm really pulling the piss on this video here. I don't know. Give me another one. Give me somebody I know. Will it have blackjacks? Oh, blackjacks and hookers. Ooh, maybe. You don't sound like that. I think that was a pretty good British accent. That was ridiculous. That was a good accent. That's exactly what every British person sounds like. Hello, so I'm talking about this. First of all, this game doesn't even have FOV sliders. Fail! Bloody fail! I tell you what. Oh, he's Australian? Oh, listen here, mate. This game doesn't even have bloody FOV sliders. It's a bloody mess, I tell you. These developers were playing bloody silly beggars. I don't know. Who's the real nasally guy from Channel Awesome? I feel like I'm pretty nasally already, so I could just talk normally. Oh, he is British! Somebody in chat just told me he was Australian. Oh, he lives in Australia. Oh. This stream turned super degenerate. Well, you know. Nobody, like, if you watched this far in, it's your own bloody fault. Who's the guy who always sounds like he's holding his nose whenever he talks? I don't know. Linkara. Oh, it was Linkara. Yeah, maybe. You know what voice I really like? I wish I had the voice of the guy who voices Fuhrer King Bradley in the English version of Full Metal Alchemist. I think he has a really good sort of voice. And it's such a weird way of talking. But that's a really good voice. And if I had that voice, I'd have 1 million subscribers. But instead, I have very few subscribers because of my terrible voice. Impersonate Darth Vader. I don't know. I don't think I can do that. That's pretty... Because you have to go really low. But you also have to have like... No, I can't do it. I'm too embarrassed. What should I say? I'm not gonna do it. No, I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed to even try because it's not gonna sound anything like Darth Vader. You don't know the power. I can't do it. My voice just breaks up when I go that low. Yeah, you're not biased at all. Don't you have like a Norwegian boyfriend or something? Can't be worse than the German. My German was really good. My German was really good. Das was richtig gut. But yeah. Like, I can do two impressions. I can do Clank from Ratchet & Clank, and it's not even that good of a Clank. It's just, like, nasally and whiny. As a German, it wasn't. You don't know anything about that. Like, you Germans, you don't know anything. You don't know anything about that. You mix Russian and Indian with German? No, that's what Germans sound like. I did a podcast with Bogan for like 3 years. I know what Germans sound like. I think you have a good accent. It's not annoying like some folks out there. Oh, thank you. I get a lot of comments from people telling me I sound like Borat. Very nice. High five. Yeah. I can see that. Hey, screw you, man. That's not nice. King of the castle. Do Yoda then. Yoda. Oh, Adak, you're leaving us, but we're just getting crazy. Yeah, it got really late. Mr. Bean Yoda. Yeah, he kind of sounds like that. He's like, Teddy. I also sound like the dictator Aladdin. Maybe I just sound like Sacha Baron Cohen. It's Ali G in the house. I don't know what Ali G sounds like. Mr. Nostalgia Yoda Bean. Remember it for you, I do. So you don't have to, Teddy. Kermit Yoda. Yoda already has like a bit of a Kermit energy because he's voiced by the same guy. No, wait, I think Frank Oz played Miss Piggy. I don't think he played Kermit. Everybody has a Kermit. Kermit is the easiest voice. Oh, you're staying? You know who else has a really good voice? Travis Willingham. He has a really good sort of masculine voice. He would have a good voice for doing video essays. I didn't know I would actually start to get funny. This is an interesting and entertaining stream. You know what voice I do really like is Full Metal Alchemist Greed voice. Not Troy Baker's voice, the other guy who voiced him first. I like his voice. Hey. None of this copyrighted music, my brother. Yeah, Chris Patton.
You know, you and your brother are being completely dense here. How's that? Well, as two cunning boys who have so diligently pursued their goals, how can you not be understanding?
It's such a smarmy, it's such a smarmy, sort of self-interested, jerky kind of, hey, you guys are being completely ridiculous here. He didn't say that, but he said something like that. You don't even need to go to the toilet. He says that I think he says that in Brotherhood, and I think that's such a funny delivery. Yeah, it's like a smirk in that tone. Yeah. A real question now. As a player, what do you think about patches? I always keep them alive. Oh, I thought you meant video game patches. Well, my friends always kill him as soon as possible. I always keep him alive. I like Patches. He's a fun guy.
Somebody like me simply wants to pursue his own. Our goals are completely different from yours!
Vic Mignogna also has a really good voice. It's a shame about the troubles, but he has a really good voice. If I sounded like Vic Mignogna, I could make these videos and I could pretend to be 12 years old forever. Yeah, Nolan North is a good voice actor. He's good. But yes, unless somebody has some more impressions, I think we should call it quits, because the stream is getting silly. It's getting silly. It's silly time stream. You like the new Kratos voice actor? Yeah, I think he's a better voice actor than was it T.C. Carson who voiced him before? I think the new guy, whose name currently escapes me. His name isn't T'Challa. That's Black Panther. What the hell is his name? What is his name? His birthday was like today or yesterday or something. I don't know. The Vic situation reminded me how prolific his portfolio is. Great voice actor. Yeah, great voice, great actor in general. Like that Star Trek thing he did with those people was really good. Really sucks about the problems. Dude from Stargate. Yeah. Oh, that's why I think his name is T'Challa, because his name in Stargate was something like T'Chan or something like that. Teal'c. Yeah, that's his name in Star Trek. Stargate. He was in Stargate. Yeah, he had like a golden turd on his forehead at all times or something. Anyways, chat, this is getting silly. This is getting silly. If you want to have silly times, you do it on the Discord. It's in the link. Could I do an impression of the doll? Oh, good hunter. Come here, good hunter. I will love you all the time. Good hunter. Why is Gorman no longer crying for me? Good hunter. I will give you many levels. Good hunter. She doesn't sound exactly like that, but that's like the gist of it. Now we're cooking. Yeah, now we're cooking. That's the doll. That's what she sounds like. Give me an impression of Lady Maria waking up after Bloodborne night. Oh my god, I am waking up after Bloodborne night. It is insane to me. The living failures are gone. And I walk... and Gorman is no longer here. What the heck? This is crazy times. That's her, so like, coughing. She sounds something like that. She does sound something like that. Anyways, this is getting silly. Chat, you're being silly. We need to call this off. And, yeah. May you find your worth in the waking world. Everything is burning, no one is alive. What the F is this doll? What's next on the list? Okay, look, one stupid impression left, and then we really gotta go. It's 11 p.m. for me. What's that? It's Maria. It's the doll. That's what she sounds like. The liking. The night mode is painful to my eyes. So much yellow being beamed into me. The tongue was the old one we made along the way. Oh, that's possible. Do Todd Howard. Oh, I could probably do Todd Howard because... So Todd Howard, he sounds kind of like this. Yeah, I'm Todd Howard. I was at the chess club. And now we're doing a video game here. And this is the best video game we've ever done. And it's so big, and you can lift up a spork. You could hold a fork in your hand, and you can rotate it. And everybody said that I should just be everybody called me a nerd because I was at the chess club. But now I get to make video games, so who's the real nerd? That's what I think. Imagine if this is the first thing you see from me. Yeah. Classic Todd. That is classic Todd. Yeah, I directed Skyrim. A lot of people like Skyrim. I'm gonna keep making Skyrim. Yeah. Okay, Skeletor. Yeah, I just want to get He-Man. Listen, I've given enough of these away for free. If you want more of these, you gotta head over to the Patreon. In the meantime, yeah, you can go to the Discord. It's in the video description. More silly times there, maybe. But thanks everybody for coming out and watching this, whatever this thing was, level design. Bye bye. Do the soup quote from Skeletor. What's the soup quote from Skeletor? Wait, what's the soup quote from Skeletor? Pedro, plus you cannot leave me like this. Pedro! No! No!